Whether you're planning your first Camino or just curious about what to expect, being aware of common mistakes that most pilgrims can make will save you stress, pain and frustration. And a confession, I've made all of these mistakes. I'm Kate and I completed my first Camino last year to mark my 50th birthday. I walked the Camino Frances and Finisterre in 40 days and I mainly did it on my own. I watched YouTube videos and I bought guidebooks. Still, I fell into some common traps. In this video, I'm going to share 5 common mistakes with you that I hope will help you if you're thinking about walking the Camino yourself. The first one, overpacking. One of the biggest mistakes new pilgrims make is taking too much stuff. I had watched YouTube packing videos and I tried to ensure that my gear was as lightweight as possible. So I'd really made the effort to try and only bring the essentials, but I still ended up bringing a few additional items that I didn't really need, and I ended up sending them home. If you are carrying everything with you on your back for weeks, which you will be unless you're having your luggage transported, and in this case, you can probably discount what I'm saying, believe me, every gram counts. And you will feel it. I've got 2 items that I'm going to show you now that I ended up sending home. I probably ended up sending a little bit more home than this, but these are the 2 that I particularly remember. The first one, it weighs nothing. It doesn't look like very much at all. It's called a scrubber. It's like a mini washing machine. You put your laundry inside, it's like a dry bag. But in there's like these bobbly bits that you rub your washing on, and you put water inside and soap, obviously, and then you roll it up and then you do your washing inside this bag. It doesn't weigh very much at all, but that's not really the point. I tried using this item for the first 2 days on the Camino Frances, and what I realised was it was actually a bit easier for me just to hand wash my stuff without using it at all. So even though it weighs only a few grams, I did end up sending it home because I was just going to be carrying it with me for the whole of those 40 days, and you don't want to be carrying anything that is not essential. I also brought this selfie stick. I thought it would help create better shots and it would also work as a tripod for my phone, but after carrying my pack over the Pyrenees, I decided that it just wasn't worth the weight and my handheld shots would have to be good enough. More recently, I've actually been back to Spain to walk another Camino, and this time I was actually even more strict with the amount of clothing that I brought, and I managed to function perfectly well, this time on a cold, wet Camino with even fewer items of clothing that I'd taken on a hot August Camino on the Camino Frances. And I would say it's also worth trimming down your clothing to the absolute bare essentials. An overstuffed backpack won't make your Camino easier, but ditching unnecessary items will. So my advice is pack light. Trust me, you really don't need all of the just in case stuff. The Camino has plenty of places along the way where you can pick up essential items if you need them, and a lighter load means more energy for walking and fewer shoulder and back aches. Number 2, overthinking. I found myself overthinking a lot of things before I even stepped foot on the Camino, from worrying about where I would sleep to wondering if I would make friends. And all of this overthinking created unnecessary anxiety. And it did actually take me a couple of weeks to settle into the rhythm and go with the flow and for a lot of those worries to dissipate. But if you go with very specific expectations, they are likely not to be met in the way that you think they will be. So letting go of perfection was a valuable lesson. And I found that the beauty of the journey was actually in the unexpected. Like first meeting another pilgrim who offered to take this picture of me and my husband at the French-Spanish border on the first day, and she ended up being a friend. Or an unexpected invitation to go to dinner with a group of pilgrims who all spoke a different language to me, but they made the time and the effort to include me in their conversations, and it was a really lovely evening. So my advice here is let go of overthinking, try not to worry too much and go with the flow and enjoy those unexpected moments along the way. Speaking of stress and worry, let's go straight into the next point. Number 3. Over-planning. This really does actually link with the first 2 points. And over-planning is a really common mistake, and it's something that I did fall into early on. For the first few days, I planned each stop, and I sometimes even planned each meal. But the issue with this is that very overly structured plans can lead to frustration when they inevitably change, or if friends that you're with decide to do something different to you, and then you kind of feel conflicted. The cafe that you were hoping for might be closed, but there might be a small tienda with an instant coffee machine that sells bocadillo sandwiches, which you enjoy sitting by a village fountain instead. It's not the same, I know, but you end up enjoying it. Perhaps all the albergues in the town are full and you end up walking longer or shorter than expected. But you might end up staying in a gem of a place that you would never have found otherwise. And it's often in those unexpected places that special Camino moments happen. An example that I share in my Pilgrim documentary is when all the cafes were closed one morning and I ended up sitting with a pilgrim from Switzerland at an outdoor area in a tiny village, and we shared our fruits and nuts together, and then we ended up crossing each other's paths from that moment on until the end of the Camino, and he became a friend along the trail. So my advice here is keep a flexible itinerary. The magic of the Camino is how it unfolds, and some days you'll want to walk further and other days you'll want to stop early, so leave room for spontaneity if you can. Number 4, and this is a big one, underestimating blisters and foot care. Blisters and painful feet are no joke on the Camino, and sadly for some people it can even mean the end of their walk. And I did see some horrendous examples of blisters on other pilgrims, and I did suffer with them to a lesser extent myself. Although I'd broken in my trail runners before I went, I still did end up developing a couple of hot spots that developed into blisters. And towards the end, I even developed new blisters as my shoes wore out. So I would say prioritise foot care. Prevention is so much better than cure. And wear well-fitted, broken-in shoes and use blister prevention methods. Like wearing proper socks, I chose merino wool socks and I found they work well for me. But you can also change your socks halfway through the day. Some people swear by rubbing Vaseline into their feet. I use Body Glide, it was just easier to carry and use, but if you rub that into your feet each morning it can help. And stop immediately at the first sign of a hot spot to tape it up or put lamb's wool on it. This is so important to do because that hot spot will develop into a blister if you're not careful. And take care of your feet every night. Clean them, massage them, air them out. Lightweight flip-flops or sandals on the Camino are your friend. Number 5, not taking enough rest and pushing yourself too hard. It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of walking and pushing yourself too hard, especially in the first few days. I was so eager to reach the next destination and keep up with pilgrims who were fitter than me, and I even started to compete with myself for the number of kilometers that I could achieve in a day. But the Camino is a marathon, it's not a sprint, and going out too hard and too fast actually meant that I did seriously pay for it later on. When I reached Leon at the end of the Meseta, I developed an overuse injury and I ended up having to stay in Leon for 2 extra unplanned nights. And I had to rest for 2 full days before being able to resume walking. It got so bad that I struggled with stairs and I actually thought it could be the end of my Camino. So my advice after learning from my own mistakes is don't be afraid to rest. Listen to your body. If it's telling you to stop, do so. Even be proactive about it and take rest before you actually feel that you need them. You'll enjoy the journey so much more if you pace yourself and if you don't push yourself too hard, especially near the beginning. It's your pilgrimage and you don't have to keep up with other people's itinerary. Hike your own hike. Sometimes the best experiences on the Camino come from taking it at a slower pace. The Camino is a life-changing adventure, and if you want to know some of the changes it's made in my life, you may wish to check out this video here.